The honourable member then for Calgary-Egmont.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my sincere privilege to rise today to respond to the speech from the throne delivered by His Honour the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. Like many others, I am an immigrant, but from another province. Many times when I meet people, one of my first questions is where they came from. The fact that so many people have moved to our province from their own choice and volition and want to be here makes for a very incredibly positive environment. This is not a new development in my generation, Mr. Speaker. From our earliest history, individuals have banded together to work for common goals, to help those in need, and to stand together to preserve and improve upon the safety and the well-being of others. Mr. Speaker, I believe the historic success of this great province of ours can be attributed to many factors, an important one being the strength and courage of our people, and another being our commitment to sound financial management that this government clearly follows. This management has enabled us to eliminate health care premiums, which will save Albertans over $1 billion annually, starting on January 1st of this year. This step was taken long before the global economic downturn began. Mr. Speaker, many other jurisdictions are going into debt with infrastructure stimulus packages, but fortunately we have more than $6 billion in our capital account for this purpose. Moving to another topic, Mr. Speaker, I'm also encouraged that the throne speech was not silent of seniors, many who live in my constituency of Calgary-Egmont. The Protection of Persons in Care Amendment Act will be introduced this session with the goal of better protecting our seniors from elder abuse, which sadly often comes from members of the senior's own family. As someone with grandparents aged 91 and 92 living in Calgary, I recognize the importance of this legislation for our seniors. Mr. Speaker, I must also mention that Bill 1, the Employment Standards Amendment Act, which will provide job-protected leave for military reservists in Alberta. Mr. Speaker, my father served in the military, and I know the sacrifice that our servicemen and women make for our country, and I'm proud to support our troops through this initiative. Mr. Speaker, I've addressed several issues briefly but now wish to talk about a particular threat facing Calgary-Egmont and, in fact, all of our province, and that's being crime. Mr. Speaker, my constituency includes several inner-city communities as well as some suburban areas. I first moved to this constituency when I came to Alberta, and I often remember my first day there. It was May 29th. It's a great area in which many people were shocked by 3 murders on New Year's Day, not too far from where I live. Far from the downtown core, it was on 94th Avenue. Crime, and in particular gang violence, is not an issue localized to the downtown core or to particular neighbourhoods, Mr. Speaker. It affects every one of us, regardless of our gender, race, colour, creed, religion, socioeconomic status, or the location of our residence, or any other personal factor we may have. Make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, gang violence in particular poses a serious threat today. Gangs operate in the atmosphere of violence and intimidation and are a stain on the fabric of this great province of ours. Even if you are not a direct victim of crime, I ask you, Mr. Speaker, to consider the cost to society. Consider the cost of fraud to businesses that is passed on to consumers through higher prices, fees, or interest rates. Consider the danger gang violence poses to police and others. Consider the pressure all crime places on our court systems. And, Mr. Speaker, consider that it is our tax dollars that fund these operations. This simply cannot be allowed to get out of control. And I put to this Assembly, Mr. Speaker, that people who have nothing but disregard for law and order in our society simply belong behind bars. Mr. Speaker, last night I was speaking to a Member of Parliament in Ottawa, and I'm pleased that this message also resonates there as well. Mr. Speaker, I have nothing but the utmost respect for our police services in this province. In fact, I'm friends with several of them in Calgary. But along these lines, I'm happy to see our continued commitment to enforcement. Last year, this government announced a province-wide increase of 300 police officers, many of whom were directly assigned to the role of targeting gang activity. Since police officers are on the front lines defending our communities from crime, funding and supporting them is the greatest step we can do to combat gang activity in our province. And I applaud this government's previous actions for targeting crime and commend its forward-thinking and modern strategy to continued commitment to safe, strong and secure communities, Mr. Speaker, but there is more to be done now and in the future. There is another equation upon how we must work as a government, and that's tackling the financial proceeds of crime. During the previous section, Mr. Speaker, I was proud to support Bill 50, the Victims' Restitution and Compensation Payment Act. This piece of legislation was specifically crafted to hit criminals where it hurts, in their wallets. Bill 50 now allows courts to seize and sell any property or asset that was used during the crime, including items such as vehicles, cash, or even houses, the proceeds of which go to the Victims of Crime Fund. Mr. Speaker, by targeting the things that criminals value most, the impetus for most crime being money, we are sending a clear message that criminals and criminal behaviour will not be tolerated in our communities. In this way, Mr. Speaker, I find it most uplifting that the Lieutenant Governor's speech is the continued commitment that this government has to preserving the safety of our society. And along these lines, I look forward to the opportunity to support further legislation aimed at halting gang activity, including forthcoming amendments to the Gaming and Liquor Act, as well as regulations assessing vehicle modifications made primarily for gang-related purposes, such as bulletproof windows on a car. It is almost impossible, Mr. Speaker, to talk about crime without mentioning the illegal drug trade. And I recognize that the purchase of illegal drugs fuels crime, and that the fewer people who consume these substances, the less money is in the hands of organized crime. And that's why, as a member of this Assembly, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to support the Alberta Adolescent Recovery Centre located in Calgary-Egmont, where I have attended. I also know there are other supporters here. I saw the member for Calgary-Glenmore there this summer, as well as the previous member for Calgary-Egmont, Mr. Denis, who introduced me to the centre. This centre has graduated over 400 people that have suffered from substance abuse addictions. And along these lines, Mr. Speaker, it is noteworthy that the Safe Communities Initiative includes support for programs for addiction recovery projects, something that goes hand in hand with crime. Mr. Speaker, we must also not forget that it is not just today's people who benefit from getting a handle on crime in our province. This came to mind last Friday when I had the pleasurable occasion to speak at Ms. Dawn McGuckin's grade 6 class at St. Matthew's School in Calgary-Egmont. By getting a handle on crime, it hit me that this generation will also benefit. Mr. Speaker, I built my dream in Alberta, and I often think of what a privilege it is to be an Albertan and a member of this Assembly. And as His Honour said yesterday, quote, we must continue to welcome people to Alberta to pursue their dreams and to build our communities. My vision of this province is one where future generations can walk the same streets today in pride and free from fear. I know our government shares this vision, and I'm pleased to support this throne speech. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, Standing Order 29-2A is available. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Montrose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To my honourable colleague, it's been nearly a year since you've been elected. What one insight of humanity would you say you have really uncovered in this past year?
That's quite a broad question. I wanted to thank the member for Calgary-Montrose. One thing that I've realized is how much this Assembly and everything we do, regardless of our partisan affiliation, actually affects people outside this chamber, whether or not they know or appreciate it. And all of us, regardless of our partisan stripes, should realize just the gravity of our actions in this province.